Pentaverate, no. The Peverton, the Petravius, that's not it. Pentavert, the Peverente, the Peverente, the Pevrant, the Pinterest, that's what it's called now. The Pencil Ear Take, the Pets Run. What am I saying? The Promenade. The Pentaverate comedy series starring and written by Mike Myers just released on Netflix, and I have some thoughts. Before we get started though, I have to tell you about this crazy conspiracy theory. Some say that if you press the red subscribe button down below, that it actually turns a majestic gray. Try it now and see if it's true. Okay, let's get right into it with the good. Mike Myers is back, baby. That's right, it's been 4 years since Mike Myers has been in any movie or TV show, and this is what he chose as his comeback series. I can tell you right now that if you've been a fan of his comedy in the past, then you will definitely enjoy the humor in this series. There are strong similarities to Myers' other work like Austin Powers and Wayne's World in this show. From the crude humor to the goofy accents and pop culture references, this is a pure Mike Myers comedy. There were definitely some laugh out loud moments for me in this series where Mike Myers' comedic genius was definitely showing, and yes, that does have a double meaning.
Your genius is showing.
Where? Now, if you've seen any trailers or promos for this show, you probably know that Mike Myers is about half of the cast in this series. This came as absolutely no surprise to me, as he's kind of become famous for doing that. While I don't always love this concept, I think this series played it off very well. For each different character that he plays, he really does bring a different aura to them. He speaks differently, he walks differently, he even thinks differently as each character, which is what makes him so talented at doing this. Even when 2 or more of his characters were interacting, it didn't feel off because of how differently they were portrayed. My wife even came into the room at one point and asked who the different people in the cast were, not realizing that all 4 people on screen were Mike Myers. I mean, in her defense, she wasn't wearing glasses. And you know what? If you aren't wearing your glasses, you might not have seen this, but down below, there's actually a little button that's just a little thumbs up. That's called the like button. If you could just go ahead down there, look a little closer, go on down there and just tap that bad boy a little bit, okay? Okay, thank you so much. But along with Myers doing a great job in this series, I also thought the supporting cast was fantastic here. I think that Keegan-Michael played an excellent straight man and really supported the oddball comedy thrown his way in every scene. Jeong annoyed the hell out of me, which was basically his job. And then I thought Lydia West had a really solid outing in this as well, and probably had the most dynamic character out of anyone else in the cast. The last thing that I want to make sure to include in the good here is the overall premise of this series. To have this whole story based around this secret society that conspiracy theorists dream of finding is so hilarious to me because of how relevant it is to today. Conspiracy theories seem to be as rampant as ever in 2022, and this show honestly does a great job of over-exaggerating and making fun of these ideas. From the Truth Battle podcast to the Con, this show is not afraid to poke fun at conspiracy theorists. I also think it was just a really fun idea to take a look into this Illuminati type group and see what type of crazy ideas Mike Myers could come up with. With that being said, let's move on to the mixed. There is one part of the story that I really wish we wouldn't have known so soon. I believe it was about the 2nd or 3rd episode where we discovered who the bad guy is in this series, and I think it would have been so much better to save this for the last couple episodes. Let the audience try and figure out who is causing this chaos, and then when shit really goes down, reveal it to us dramatically. That way we have something to figure out alongside our lead characters. I feel like this was a missed opportunity, and it kind of took away from the show for me. Once they revealed who the villain was, I really just had no motivation to keep watching. The only reason this stays out of my bad category is because I do respect the decision to not hide the villain like every other show does, even though I think it would have helped in this case. With that though, let's move on to the bad. If you like Mike Myers, then you will probably like a lot of the humor in this show. However, if you do not like extremely over-the-top comedy, then you will hate this series. Personally, I liked Mike Myers' humor when I was a preteen, and poop and penis jokes were just the funniest thing around. However, now that I'm 24 and comedy has changed a lot over the last decade and a half, I found a lot of this to be kinda cringe-inducing. I wasn't kidding about the poop and penis jokes before. About 80% of the jokes throughout this are that. And that's fine for a certain crowd, but it's just not for everyone. I found myself laughing quite a bit in the first couple episodes, but as it went on, I just found it to be pretty repetitive. And again, if you are a big fan of Mike Myers' humor to this day, then this doesn't really apply to you. But if you're kind of on the fence about that sort of humor like I am, then this is something to be aware of. For me, it wasn't a deal breaker, but it could be for some. And for my final bad thought about this show, while I loved the idea and the premise behind this, I don't think that they went about it in the best way. I think that this series would have been better off focusing on Keegan-Michael Key's character being inducted into the Pentaverate and the crazy things happening within, rather than focusing on some big, crazy storyline. It just feels as if Myers felt the need to give some sort of elaborate story to this, rather than having a show like The Office or Parks and Rec where characters are just goofing off in their environment every day. I think it would have been perfectly fine to just explore the society itself, connect with the characters a bit more, and just see the crazy, goofy stuff that would happen on a normal day inside the Pentaverate. Before we move on to my final thoughts, please make sure to leave a comment down below. If you've seen this series, what did you think of it? Or if you haven't, what's your excitement level for it? But now it's time for my final thoughts. I've said it once and I'll say it again. If you're a Mike Myers stan, then this series is a must watch. But if you're someone like me who's a bit on the fence about Mike Myers' sense of humor, then this recommendation gets a bit more tricky. This is an interesting concept written by a very funny guy, but the story didn't push into that concept quite as much as I would have liked, and the humor didn't always land for me. Personally, I'm gonna have to give the Pentaverate a conspiring 6.5 out of 10. This is a great show to turn on in the background, pay some attention to get your comedy fix, and just don't pay too much mind to the overall story. If you've made it this far though, please consider liking and subscribing, as I am going to be reviewing all the movies and TV shows on all the different streaming platforms that you can imagine. That's all for this time, so I'll catch you in the next one.